You've got some extra money this month. Do you throw it at your debt, or do you invest it? Get this one decision wrong, and it can quietly cost you tens of thousands of dollars over a lifetime. Get it right, and the exact same dollars build real wealth. There's a simple rule that settles it, and almost nobody explains the part that actually matters. Welcome to Net Worth It, where building wealth and personal finance finally makes sense, backed by what the data actually says. Let's get into it. Here's the entire debate in one sentence. Every dollar you use to pay off debt earns you a guaranteed return equal to that debt's interest rate. Pay off a credit card charging 21%, and you just earned 21% risk-free, tax-free. Invest that same dollar instead, and your return is only a hope. A good hope, historically, but not a guarantee. So the rule is this: compare your debt's interest rate to what your money could reasonably earn if you invested it. Whichever number is higher wins the dollar. That's the whole framework. But the real skill is knowing which numbers to plug in and the two exceptions that beat everything else. So let's build the decision, step by step, in the exact order the math supports. Step 1, and it is not close, high interest debt comes first. Always. The average United States credit card now charges about 21% a year. Think about what that number really means. Paying down that balance is like locking in a guaranteed, tax-free 21% return. There is no investment on earth that reliably pays 21%. The stock market's long-run average is around 10% a year. So when you carry a credit card balance and invest at the same time, you are effectively borrowing at 21% to chase 10. You're going backwards by about 11% a year and calling it investing. So the rule's first verdict is simple: any debt above roughly 8 to 10% credit cards, payday loans, most personal loans gets destroyed before you invest a single dollar. This is the rare money decision with almost no downside. A guaranteed double-digit return you cannot get anywhere else. But there is exactly one thing you should do even before you attack that credit card. And skipping it is the single most expensive mistake in personal finance. The employer match on a workplace retirement account, like a 401k. Here's a very common setup: your employer adds 50 cents for every dollar you contribute, up to 6% of your salary. Read that slowly. The moment you put money in, you get an instant 50% return. Some employers match dollar for dollar, that's an instant 100%. Guaranteed, immediately, before the money is even invested. Nothing beats that. Not paying off a 21% credit card. Not any investment in the world. An instant 50 to 100% return is the closest thing to free money the financial system offers. So our order so far: capture the full employer match first, then kill high interest debt. Leaving that match on the table is leaving a raise on the table every single year you don't take it. There's one more thing that comes before the harder math: a basic emergency fund. The common guideline is 3 to 6 months of expenses, but even a small starter cushion, say $1,000, changes everything. Why? Because without it, the next surprise, a car repair, a medical bill, a layoff, goes straight back onto that 21% credit card, and you're running in a circle, undoing all your progress. A cash buffer barely earns anything sitting in a high-yield savings account at around 4%. But that's not its job. Its job is to keep you from sliding back into expensive debt. Think of it as the insurance that protects every other smart decision you're about to make. So far, the answers were easy, because the numbers were extreme: 21% debt, an instant match. Now comes the part people actually argue about: low interest debt. Say you have a loan at 3%. Should you rush to pay it off, or invest instead? Run the rule. Your debt costs you a guaranteed 3%. Historically, a broad stock market index has returned around 10% a year before inflation, and roughly 6 to 7% after inflation. On paper, investing wins that matchup clearly: earn 7, pay 3, you come out ahead. But here's the part nobody explains. Those two returns are not equal in certainty. Paying off the 3% loan is a locked-in, guaranteed 3%. The 7% from investing is a long-run average with gut-wrenching swings along the way, and some stretches far below average. You are trading certainty for a higher expected return. That trade is usually worth it over decades, but it is a real trade, not a free lunch. Let me make it concrete. Imagine you have $5,000 and a 3% loan. Pay the loan, and you save a guaranteed $150 in interest that year. Invest it at a hypothetical 7%, and you'd expect about $350, but you might be down in a bad year. Over 20 or 30 years, that gap compounds into real money in favor of investing. Over 1 year, it's a coin you can fully predict. So here is the rule of thumb nobody states cleanly, call it the 1% rule. If your debt's interest rate is more than about 1% below your realistic expected return, investing tends to win. If the debt rate is within a point of that return, or above it, lean toward paying the debt down. That 1% is your margin of safety, your payment for the uncertainty you're taking on. For low-rate debt, like many mortgages, investing usually wins, especially inside tax-advantaged accounts where the growth compounds untaxed. For anything in the messy middle, say 5 to 8%, it's close enough that it stops being pure math. And there's one more wrinkle that quietly tilts the gray zone toward investing: where you put the money. Inside a tax-advantaged account, a 401k or an IRA, your gains aren't taxed year after year, so that historical 7% compounds completely untouched for decades. Paying off a low-rate loan, by contrast, only ever saves you that one low rate. So a dollar of low-interest debt, set against a dollar growing in a tax-sheltered account, is often not as close as it looks. The tax shield does a lot of the heavy lifting over 20 or 30 years. It's the same reason capturing that 401k match was step 1. The system rewards money that's allowed to compound without being taxed and re-taxed along the way. Which brings us to the factor every spreadsheet ignores. Because the best financial plan is not the one that's mathematically perfect. It's the one you'll actually stick with. Here's what the math misses. Debt isn't only a number, it's a weight. For a lot of people, being completely debt-free brings a peace of mind that's genuinely worth giving up a point or two of theoretical return. That's not irrational. That's valuing certainty and sleep over optimization. And behavior cuts both ways. There are two classic payoff methods. The avalanche: attack your highest interest rate first mathematically, the cheapest path. And the snowball: pay off your smallest balance first, for a quick psychological win that keeps you motivated. The avalanche saves more money on paper, but the snowball helps more people actually finish. And the mathematically optimal plan you quit halfway beats nothing. The slightly suboptimal plan you actually complete beats everything. So be honest about which kind of person you are and build the plan you won't abandon. So let's put the entire rule together, the priority order the math actually supports. 1. Grab the full employer match. It's an instant 50 to 100%, nothing beats it. 2. Build a small emergency cushion, so a single surprise doesn't undo all your progress. 3. Destroy high-interest debt, anything above roughly 8%, because paying it is a guaranteed double-digit return. 4. With what's left, compare. Low-rate debt below your expected return. Investing usually wins. Higher rate, or in the middle. Lean toward paying it down or split the difference and weigh your own peace of mind as part of the math. That's the whole thing. It was never really debt versus investing. It's a priority order, decided by one comparison, over and over, a guaranteed cost, against an expected return. This is education, not financial advice. Your exact rates, taxes, and situation are yours, so do your own research or talk to a licensed professional before making a move. But if this finally made the debt versus investing question make sense, subscribe. Every week we turn confusing money decisions into clear ones, backed by the data. We'll see you in the next one.